As the manhunt for the Paris killers intensified on Wednesday, NBC Nightly News reported a dramatic development, and that continued on MSNBC.
We have breaking news. NBC has just learned that one of the suspects have been killed and two are in custody.
A senior U.S. counterterrorism official tells NBC News that at this hour, one suspect has been killed and two other suspects are in custody.
But seconds after Chris Hayes delivered that news, NBC's Pete Williams, who reported the original story, started backing off.
To be fair here, we just don't know exactly what the situation is in France tonight, well into the middle of the night. There have been conflicting reports all afternoon about whether an arrest had been made.
And the next night, a retraction for NBC relying on those unnamed U.S. officials.
And while these sources had been reliable in our previous reporting, the intel they passed along to us last night turned out not to be correct.
KT, Pete Williams, usually a very reliable reporter, but to report that one of the killers have been dead and the others taken into custody, this is Wednesday, remember, that's a big mistake.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more of it. Why? Because traditional media, it's dying. Newspapers are dying, news magazines are dying, people are still watching television, but increasingly getting their news from the internet. That means instantaneous, 24/7. Every few minutes you refresh your page. So the push will be for the mainstream media to try to get out there and be fast too. And they'll make mistakes as they have now. You know, the good old days when I was at the Pentagon, when we did the Grenada operation, we took guys like Fred and we put him on a boat and we sent him out in the middle of the water until the operation was over so there wouldn't be any leaks.
Fred, you worked at NBC News for decades.
Let me make this point. Pete Williams is the finest reporter, one of the finest reporters in this town. I've known him and worked with him for 30 years. He had, and I've done some reporting on this, he had multiple sources from multiple agencies within the U.S. government getting information from French intelligence and French law enforcement over a period of a couple hours before he reported that. And his reporting has been so accurate over the last 2 decades with the same sources in the U.S. government, you would have to go with that information. And he did, because it was, but the information was bad from France. It was not, the French were telling the FBI, the Justice Department, and the CIA the same thing.
But that's the risk. Now, we saw this, Mara, with CNN's John King erroneously reporting there had been another arrest in the Boston Marathon bombing. But here's the risk that Pete Williams took, that John King took, and others have taken. It's happened on Fox and elsewhere. Even if you're right, what's the great scoop in getting that 10 minutes before everyone else? I know we're all competitive in this business, but the risk is tremendous.
I think the risk is greater than the benefit of being right. Who cares? Like KT said, people are looking at the internet every second. What does it matter if you beat another network by 35 seconds?
It matters, Mara. I mean, if
it matters in the insular world of journalism.
No, not just in the internet. With social media today, if a tweet goes out that NBC News has a break in the story, people switch to NBC News.
But it's not worth the risk, is what I'm saying. In other words, the benefit of that is not worth being wrong.
My point to you is that in 23 years, it is rare that somebody like Pete Williams makes a mistake like this. So you
and I said that at the top.
And overall, the reporting on this was good.
Different question.
No, it hasn't been good. No, I want to make a point here. The French reported there was a third guy, the 18-year-old. He's released now. The French reported that Hayat Boumadine, whatever her name is, was a suspect in the grocery store. She wasn't even in the country. So a lot of bad news is coming out.
There's conflicting accounts about issues in the country. I can't resolve that right now. Is there anything in this story that we're missing?
Here's what everybody's missed the big story. I mean, if it bleeds, it leads, right? We're all focused on Paris. We're all focused at the Million Man March. The real story of the week was the president of Egypt came out and he went to the top religious university in the Muslim world, and he said to the imams to their face, you need a revolution. It is your fault that we are hated throughout the world. Radical Islam, I lay it at your feet. You have to change. That has had earthquakes in the Arab world.
The question I would raise is whether or not when we go to this nonstop coverage that the whole world is watching, whether in some level we're giving the terrorists what they want, which is to go out as they would see it in their twisted way, some blaze of glory. Thanks very much this morning, Mara Elias, KT McFarland, and Fred Francis.